Nation.
Raging Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Alert! Ready? Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? That's up.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Hello once again. Welcome to another edition of the Raging Review podcast. I'm Gerry, joined by Nick. Lane is actually on a road trip heading to San Marcos, bringing some of that Cajun Nation flavor. Getting ready for Tuesday night's big showdown against Texas State. So Lane is on the road, so he won't be here today. So safe travels to Lane. But we do have our fan spotlight this week. We have Mr. Kevin Dore, good friend of the pod. You'll see him on social media. He's a huge diehard Cajuns fan. You'll see him at the Teague. You see him at Cajun Field. He is all over the place. And guess what? He drives in from Patterson. So the man is a diehard. That is loyalty right there. Kevin, welcome to Raging Review. How are you today, my friend?
I'm pretty good, Gerry. I'm honored to be here. I've been a fan of the pod for a while, and just happy to be here. Good deal.
So we have a lot to discuss today. Nick, I got to ask you, man. And now before I start, Nick, you live in a big subdivision in Houston. All right. So last night, our neighborhood. So as most of you know, I moved down the road here in Lafayette. And I live in a subdivision that apparently goes really big for Halloween. Our trick-or-treat night is always the Saturday before Halloween. So we went trick-or-treating. Are you now? It was loaded with people yesterday. We had a blast. The wife and I, as well as our daughter, we all dressed up. I got to ask, are you in your neighborhood? Is there a big trick-or-treating population? Are you one of those people that like puts a sign up in front of your house and says, "I'm not home, go away"? Or do you just put the candy in front of the house and people just take what they want?
Gerry, there's about 70,000 people in my neighborhood. Okay. In my neighborhood, about 70,000 people. And I live in a cul-de-sac. It's all decorated. I'm slacking there. I will admit it. I've got a couple things I need to put out. We have one of our neighbors who for years did a haunted house. And when I'm talking about like a haunted house, I'm talking like built it from the ground up. Like her husband's a contractor. He builds a haunted house. I cannot even explain to you how many kids we get trick-or-treating every year. This year, I spent way too much money on a costume to scare the hell out of them. So that should be fun. And then I do hurricanes and purple drink for the neighbors and stuff. So I usually host a Halloween party. So yes, it's a big deal here, but I got a lot to say after that. Okay. So we got through that. Shout out to my boy, Reese Burns, Montreal Alouettes cap. He hooked me up with today, or I should say this week. So thank you, Reese. Appreciate that. But one more thing before we get started. Can I have a second? Okay. Let me do a quick wardrobe change. All right, here we go. All right, I can't hear you because I can't put my headphones on with this thing. But this is it, man. This is the state of the Saints right now. Fire freaking Dennis Allen. He is 28-52 as an NFL head coach. In case you didn't hear me say that, let me say it again without the bag on my head. 28-52 as an NFL head coach and is still coaching the Saints.
Time out. No. He's not 20. He's 26-52. Don't give him the 2 extra wins.
Well, whatever. He sucks.
Yeah,
and we need to get rid of him.
Don't give him any more wins. He hasn't earned it.
Jerk. So, baghead day for the Saints. Hope, of course, we win, but then again, if we don't, it's not going to ruin my day. That's what the beautiful thing is about the Saints being terrible again. Like, if they lose, it doesn't ruin my day anymore.
And I usually post in the morning, before on game day on the Raging Review accounts. Can we get a who dat? I wasn't in the mood today. I just,
No.
because if you ask who dat, it's the entire NFL except for Carolina and Dallas. It seems like the entire NFL is just taking their turn, just dominating the Saints. So,
and you talked about going, like, we were trying to figure out when we would go live, schedules, all that stuff. Our game's on Tuesday. It's weird. So we decided on Sunday, and you said, well, let's do it Sunday night. And I'm like, no, let's do it before the game, because I don't want to be pissed off coming into the pod talking about Texas State, because I think anyway, we'll talk about what I think on that. But I didn't want to come into this pod being like Saints on my head. So I wanted to have a clear head, some clarity. So that's why we're doing it before the game. Plus, I want to listen to Hold the Mayo. His post-game show for the Saints game is fantastic. So
yes, and of course, everybody loves the "Yeah, I'm live" caller, who is actually a friend of the pod, by the way.
And a friend of mine. He added me too individually because I'm that cool. He didn't add you because you suck.
No.
He added me because I'm freaking cool. No, I'm just kidding. He did, but you don't suck, Gerry. I like you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Nick. So yeah, we do have a lot to talk about today, and we'll kind of go through the list of things. We'll talk about the Coastal win. We'll talk about the Texas State preview. We'll talk about what happened around the Sun Belt. There was some pretty significant scores that actually affected the Cajuns, even though the Cajuns had the weekend off before this Tuesday night showdown. We'll talk some Cajuns volleyball, some Cajuns soccer, and just what's going on around college football in general. A lot happened yesterday. Really, that was pretty intriguing, and some updated news on college football rankings and how the Cajuns relate to that as well. But first, let's talk about the Coastal win. I know it was over a week ago, but I can't help but still explain how significant that win was to go on the road, spoil their homecoming, and also to win against a team that pretty much chickened out in 2020 after what happened. It was interesting. We sure know how to trigger other fan bases, and it's so funny how a lot of Coastal fans are still upset that we still won't stop talking about it. Well, no, we're not going to stop talking about it. We're going to keep talking about it and keep reminding you how, not only did you duck the conference championship game in 2020, but the way your players and your team acted, we just have to keep reminding you of it until, for pretty much as long as we want, conveniently. But it was nice to have a little bit of closure last Saturday as a fan base after what had happened in 2020. I do know for a fact that there were a lot of players on that 2020 team that wanted this win badly, as well as the fans. And to go on the road and grind to a 10-point win was very satisfying. And also, Louisiana officially, we were the first team in conference to become bowl eligible. So pretty much the Cajuns control their own destiny right now. I thought as a whole, the Cajuns played some pretty solid football at the line of scrimmage. I thought that they kind of slowed some momentum in the middle of the game. Coastal, they found ways to keep the game close. That running back Bennett was their entire offense. We could not stop him, which I will say that we'll talk about that going into Texas State, because that was a huge factor last week. Cannot let that happen again against Texas State's running back, who's probably the best in the league right now. So, it was just good to get that win. It was good to come out and just, it's nice to be 6-1. That's the thing. It's nice to be 6-1. It took us 12 weeks in the last 2 years to get our 6th win. It's the last week of the regular season to become bowl eligible. And we're just a little halfway through, and we're already going to a bowl game. And now with everything that's going on, we pretty much control our own destiny. So, it was just a good win overall. Very happy, very excited. I know the players were very happy. The coaching staff was excited, and I know the fans let the Coastal Carolina fans know how they felt after the game. So, going to put a bow on that win. Again, Cajuns victorious over Coastal 34-24, and hopefully we carry that into Tuesday night into San Marcos. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, what I liked about the Coastal win is, again, it's another example of last 2 seasons, ball never went our way. The bounces never went our way. We struggled when we should have won some games. We lost them. This year, and I said that earlier in the season, it felt different. The season feels different. Like, you feel like the guys truly believe they're in every single game. And not to say we were losing at any point. I don't know that we trailed at all during this game, but it was tied a couple times. And the resiliency, and when you see that last play that we won on with that pass was crazy. And that's, again, another example is you make your own luck. And we just kept at it. We didn't stop. We didn't give up. It was 3rd and 15 or 3rd and whatever. And instead of just conceding to run the ball and try to kick it away and pin them deep and hope they don't come back and score 3 to tie it, we put the dagger in their heart. And that's what we've been looking for the last couple of seasons that we really haven't seen. So that was really, really encouraging. Always great to get a win over Coastal. Always great to get a win, especially at their place on the road. Very challenging, especially ahead of this very challenging game we have on the road again this week. But their fans really, I mean, that one guy who was, I don't know if he was on the pod that was supposed to hop on with us, but didn't. But he was pretty upset that we kept talking about the Coastal loss from or they're ducking the game. And then the the defense was amazingly enough, not that they didn't duck the championship game. The defense was, well, we ducked it because of Troy, not because of you. And I'm like, that doesn't make it any better. You guys still chickened out of the championship game for the Sun Belt Conference. So I thought that was a bit amusing, but no, it's really good to see our fans engaging with other fan bases. Finally, it seems like we got the right people with the right accounts, the Raging Burners. I know you, Kevin, were in the middle of it. I was in the middle of it. It's just good to be able to have that fan base now that instead of just sitting back and accepting it, we're fighting back. And actually, I mean, Texas State, when we talk about their Twitter feed, I mean, they're just terrible. They cannot talk crap for anything, probably because they've been losing for so long. But yeah, they're just really bad at it. Kevin, your thoughts on the Coastal game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to piggyback off what you said. You know, for 4 weeks in a row now, we've found ways to put games away. And like you said, last year, the year before last, we just couldn't find ways to put games away. You know, three straight 10-point wins in a row. I felt like late in the game there, we showed some resiliency. When, you know, Coastal kind of started finding their footing in the passing game and in the run game, of course. And then, you know, you kind of go score for score there towards the end, and then you get down in a situation where you should, you know, the game's pretty much in your hands. Up 3, you know, you're trying to run the clock out. But what I like is they didn't just run the ball and you know, just kind of take and make them burn their timeouts. You know, we kind of kept our foot on the gas, and I think that's been Dez's MO this year as opposed to last year. And he even said it, you know, last year we were playing not to lose, and this year we're playing to win. You could definitely tell, like you say, you get down there, you get a drop by Terrence Carter on 2nd down or 3rd down or 2nd down, then you get the false start penalty that puts you back behind the chains, and then Ben Wooldridge makes a Heisman-like play, or Terrence Carter as well, you know. So it just goes to show the resiliency of this team this year, and they just keep finding ways to win, making second half adjustments, and I think it just fell in line with how this season's went.
You know what's funny about what you mentioned, how the last 3 weeks we've won the games by 10 points. And what's funny about that is it doesn't feel like a 10-point win. It felt a lot closer because some of those touchdowns we scored were like in the last 2 minutes or so. What's interesting to me is going into this year, I stated that Coach Desimo was 2-9 in games decided by 7 points or less. And ironically, those 3 wins don't even fit into that record because we've won by double digits. So it's very bittersweet. You know, I'd like to make the record look better, but at the same time, you're winning those games by even larger margins. I think you can add to it. I think we're 3-9 now with the win against Wake Forest. We won by 3, but in the last 4 weeks, to win those games at the last minute and to find ways to finish. I mean, we said it, Nick, before the season started. The key theme here is to finish games. And outside of Tulane, we've done that. And even against Tulane, who has shown us to be a really, really good football team, they have definitely
they've shown who they are.
I think
Tulane
is worthy of it. No, I think they're worthy of a top 25 spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think. And for us, you know, yes, it was frustrating to lose to them, but technically, if we gave them 14 points and we really could have won that game. So it's also a kind of a compliment to us and where we belong. Not necessarily the fact that we lost the game, but where we belong. And I think that's a wake-up call to our fans, to our coaching staff, to our players to realize, we could play. There's quite a few elite teams in college football, but that doesn't take away the fact that we could play a lot of teams in college football right now with the way we're playing.
Yeah, and I was saying to that point, after the Tulane loss, we weren't upset. Like, we were mad at some of the individual contributions and where we lacked and could have been better, but we were not upset at the fact that we lost that game because one or two plays and the score is going the opposite way. So look, that the more they keep winning now, I don't want them to win out. I want them to drop a couple games because we need to leapfrog them if we're going to be in that CFP conversation. By the way, I shared something today on X about we're one of the teams now being mentioned as one of the G5s in play for that CFP if things go, a certain way. I mean, Boise State, obviously, with their win, are still in the driver's seat. But if Boise State drops a game or two and we keep winning, then we're in the even more serious conversation for that spot. So, look, one game at a time. We can look back at Tulane and say we should have had it. Yeah, we probably should have. But the fact that you see how dominant Tulane has been from the time that we played them to now shows you that we should be like, this is not a fluke. We are as good as we think we are. A lot better than I expected us to be, if we're being quite honest. And when we get into the Texas State game, you look at who Texas State has played. Texas State has not played a ton of great teams this season. A lot of their wins come off of teams like Troy and FCS. I think they barely squeaked one out against Lamar. So they're vulnerable. They're a good team. They have a lot of talent on that team. But Texas State still has to prove to me that they are a good team, not just individually players wise, but that they have good coaching, good execution. They still have a lot to prove to me. We're going to find out Tuesday night, not only where we stand in the conference, but also where Texas State stands.
Yeah, let's and so like I said, we're gonna put a bow on Coastal again. Cajuns, good win over Coastal Carolina. Cajuns now sit at 6-1, 3-0 in conference play. Coastal at the time, I think they dropped to 4-3. And I think they're 1-2 in conference play, I believe, or 2.
By the way, it's so funny you mentioned it was like a week ago that we played them. It was so long ago that I put that we're going to recap the App State game because my mom, like, it's been so long, I kind of forgot. Hey, no, we played Coastal last week, not App State. So I just thought that was kind of funny. My bad, guys. I will change that and yes, Andy Thomas, we are live. So feel free to give us your comments, man.
No sweat. Well, anyway, so let's move on. Tuesday night, we've got ourselves a huge showdown, most possibly the game of the year, I think, for us. Louisiana travels to San Marcos, Texas to take on Texas State. Kickoff will be at 6:30. Game will be on ESPN2. And this is, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this game is sort of like a roadblock for us. It's kind of like a gatekeeper to determine what the rest of our season looks like. I really believe that if we win this game with the way our schedule pans out from Tuesday night, because we play Tuesday and then we have 3 straight home games, and then we go to ULM, who showed us yesterday they're not invincible, as people were saying. I think if we win Tuesday night, guys, I think we can win out. Now, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think that's the importance of this game. Now that the Sun Belt Conference race is where it's at, and now that we're in the position we're in, and we'll get into that in a second, this Texas State game is the perfect test for us, because you're going on the road against a team that pretty much had us circled on their calendar from the start of the season. They're winless against us. They are also in the race for the Sun Belt Western Division. And the perception of their program has changed since G.J. Kinney has arrived there. They're coming off an 8-5 season with a bowl win. They're coming off some really good performances on paper. And they've got a lot of talent on that team to where we're going to talk about matchups, but we're gonna have to be on our P's and Q's and play with some good discipline this week if we want a shot to win. I know we've talked to people, Nick, this week, and some people don't feel comfortable because it's such a an odd matchup for us. I still think we can win. I still think we're going to win. But this is the perfect... I don't think this test could not have come at a more perfect time for what we're trying to achieve right now. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got momentum, which is important. Texas State, they lost last week, right?
They did, to Old Dominion on the road. Who, by the way, you want to talk about a team that's hot right now?
Man, yeah.
ODU is on fire.
Yeah, and we saw that. I mean, last year we saw what they did with their offense. So, I mean, we could, if things play out, we could very well be playing ODU for the championship later this year. But first things first, Texas State. Is there a path for us to get to the championship game if we drop this game against Texas State? Yes.
Absolutely.
Is it harder for us in that path? Yes. I don't think if Texas State beats us Tuesday night, I don't think they run the table. I really don't. I mean, there are too many question marks on Texas State, too many inconsistencies with them. I feel like the one thing that we've done better this season that we've done the last couple of seasons is we're pretty consistent. Now, we got the Diddy fingers the last couple of weeks where we're dropping passes. So let's not act like we're blowing everybody out. We're not. If you catch a couple passes last week, we put the game away. We could say that for Southern Miss. We can say that for App State. We were just a couple of passes away for like stepping on their throats and we couldn't do it. We cannot do that against Texas State this week because one, there's going to be a great crowd there. I have no doubt. It's going to be a national television. But we do have the momentum going in. Use that to your advantage, right? Don't get cocky. Don't think you're going to walk in there and take a dub. And we could very well go in there and blow them out. Who knows? Like our series with Texas State is weird. In years that we weren't great, we blew Texas State out. So I guess the point is I'm not going to hit the panic button by any means if we drop this game to Texas State, which we could very well do, because I still think that there's a very good chance from that point it comes down to ULM or even South Alabama, man. We played South Alabama this year. When do we play South Al? Couple weeks, right?
We played them on the 16th, the week after homecoming.
After homecoming, right.
Yeah,
So we still got to play. And South Alabama can put points up just like we can, right? So that could very well be a shootout. But I still think talent coaching wise, the rest of the schedule really is in our favor until ULM. Anything can happen. We know that's a weird game. Doesn't matter who's the coach, who has got the better talent on the team, whatever. That's always a weird game. So I still think even if we drop this game, that ULM game at the end of the season is going to be the one to determine the West. However, if you're in the driver's seat, you don't want to lose that driver's seat permission, right? If you're there and all you got to do is just one game at a time, grind it out, I'm feeling pretty good about that. And especially in the fact that we're controlling the clock for a lot of these games. And it's not by a small margin. It's by a wide margin. Now, we're not outscoring the competition like you think you should when you're controlling the clock that much, but we're not built to I mean, I'm not saying we're not built to score 50 points a game. We're built to score. But if we don't score on a drive that's taken 6 minutes off the clock, it's not the end of the world because we still have our defense that's bend, don't break. Has some inconsistencies there, I will admit. But again, it's not, I guess the whole point of this rant is it's not the end of the season if we do lose against Texas State. And I understand there are some matchups. And I think, Kevin, you may have brought it up last week or somebody brought up the matchups between us and Texas State doesn't look great. But I think when you're coming in with the momentum, when you're coming in with the attitude that you can win and you will win, when you've got the talent we've got and we've seen our coaching, again, through 3 years just get better, I'm feeling okay, but not the end of the world if we drop it. Now, don't drop it and act stupid. Don't drop it because of stupidness, because I will be pissed if we do that. But if it's a good, clean game between two good teams, I'm not going to hate on it, if we drop it. But I still think we'll win.
Kevin, I want to hear your thoughts about that. So Nick brings up a valid point about, is the season over if we lose this game? And I'm with you, Nick. I don't think it is because just yesterday, and we'll talk about the Sun Belt scores, yesterday showed the parity within the conference. I mean, you've seen some of these upsets or wins by certain teams or losses by certain teams, and you realize that Tuesday night is not going to determine what happens. Now, granted, I do think it makes our path a lot easier with the way things land on our schedule from there. But Kevin, I want your thoughts on that. What do you think, as far as our destiny's concerned, is going to happen based on whatever happens on Tuesday night?
Yeah, look, I agree with y'all. I think the chance at the conference championship isn't out of the window if you lose to Texas State, but it definitely makes it harder. I mean, you're right. The good thing about this conference is any given Saturday, any given Tuesday, whatever it may be, but you put the fate of your team in someone else's hands. And when you have a chance to avoid that, you got to at all costs. Even looking at the rest of our schedule, I mean, Arkansas State's playing good football right now. They're not blowing people out. They're winning close games. They did struggle against Texas State, but it's going to be our homecoming game. And as we've seen from last weekend at Coastal, that means something to the road team when you get picked as the homecoming date. So they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder. They got us last year, so they've got a little bit of momentum from that. So that's going to be a tough game. And then, like Nick said, you go into South Al the following weekend, who's scoring a lot of points right now. I'm not sure who they play this weekend, or next weekend, should I say. But they just got a pretty nice win over a pretty good ULM defense. Now, ULM's offense isn't all that great, but as we could see, but they got a good defense, and they're scoring points on people. So, you know, it's going to be, this is the meat and potatoes of the schedule these next 3 weeks, and I'm really happy. It sucks as fans because you don't get to watch the Cajuns for a couple of Saturdays, but at least you get a chance to get healthy. And I think that was kind of creeping up on it. It wasn't really hurting us. We had guys that have been injured, and they're just playing through, which is great. The good news about that is Zylan should be good to go Tuesday night, according to Dez last week in his presser. But yeah, it gives you a chance to get healthy at the right part of the schedule. So if you can get through these next 3 weeks with Texas State, and then you get into those 3 home games, Troy even showed us that they have some life in them. You know, every team in this conference has life. So, yeah, look, Texas State, they're a good team. They have a lot of talent. They've got a talented quarterback and running back, the skill guys, the big names. But they've lost a couple of games this year that they probably shouldn't have lost. And the Cajuns are a little bit more, they haven't been together long, that Texas State team. There's a lot of new faces in new places, and they're the exact opposite of this UL team. I mean, this team has been together for a while. You know, our quarterback's been here for, this is his 6th or 7th year, right?
His 40th year, as far as I'm concerned. But yes,
yeah,
he's
been
like
here a while. My age, you know. But it's great. We got continuity throughout the offense, mostly special teams as well with Kenny. So we've shown we finally put it together to where we're not just, you know, not to get back on what we were talking about, but we can put games away, and a lot of that's attributed to the fact that this team has been playing together so long. That's a huge part of football. When your team knows each other and you know where you're going to be and what you're supposed to be doing. And I think that's going to play a big role in Texas State Tuesday. You know, like you said, it's going to be big environment. We really haven't seen that kind of environment this year. You know, the biggest crowd we've played in, I mean, obviously our first 2 home games were great environments with big crowds. I'm expecting a similar crowd for Texas State, you know, around 25,000. But the Tuesday night, you know, prime time, you and La Tech's the only game on, but who's watching them?
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah, I think we'll handle it well. I don't think we're going to go in there and do anything stupid and hand the game to them and get blown out, and you know what I'm saying? I think we're going to do what we're supposed to do. It's just going to come down to executing plays on the field, really.
Yeah, and before we go back to you, Gerry, I just wanted to point out, because this stuck in my head, that Kevin said. So the schedule, he was talking about some of the games that they played. They beat who they should have beat, with one big exception. They beat Lamar 34-27. Big deal, right? UTSA, turns out they're not very good. They beat them 49-10. Arizona State beat them at home on a Thursday night, 31-28. And then they lost to Sam Houston, which was absolutely ridiculous. Now, Sam Houston's better than we thought they were, but they had a huge lead in that game, and they let Sam Houston come back. So again, what I was talking about coaching advantage, I think that's where our coaching advantage is that Sam Houston made some really, really good adjustments at halftime, came back and beat them. And Texas State, I don't know. I mean, it feels like from us last year where we did the last couple of years, we just didn't make adjustments and stayed the course. They beat Troy, which they should have beaten 38-17. But again, Troy is showing a little bit of life. They beat Arkansas State, who has gotten better since that game in earlier in October. They beat him 41-9, and then dropped the game to Old Dominion 24-14 last week. That ODU is a pretty damn good team, and they're showing that now. So look, I feel like they beat the teams that they should have beaten. Maybe should have beaten ODU, but didn't, because ODU maybe is better than we expected. They're not, in my opinion, they're not on the same level as Tulane whatsoever.
No.
And so when you look at individual matchups, you can say a team's not better, but they still beat you. But I feel I have a little bit of confidence going into this game cautiously that the role we're on, the maturity in this team, like you said, Kevin, the importance that we have guys who have been together for so long, know how to win, know how to be humble, know how to look at the next play, you know, you drop a pass, you come back and you redeem yourself. I feel like that will play into this game a little bit.
So let's talk a little bit about Texas State now that we're really getting into the game itself. So let's familiarize ourselves with them. Like we mentioned, you know, they could score points. They're a good team. They're a lot better than what we've seen over the last decade or so. And they're going to be hyped for this game, considering the fact that there's a lot at stake. Texas State comes in with a 4-3 record overall, 2-1 in conference play. Like you mentioned, they lost their 2 conference wins. Comes up against Troy and Arkansas State. Their 1 loss comes last week against ODU on the road. Right now, they're scoring right under 35 points a game. So they could score points. They're giving up just under 23 points a game. Their first downs, a total 179 first downs to their opponents 136. Average rushing yards per game. They're averaging 185 yards per game. Their opponent is averaging 136.9. They have 11 rushing touchdowns. The opponents have 12. Passing, they're averaging 275 yards passing per game. Their opponents are averaging 205 passing yards per game. And total offense, they're averaging 460 yards of total offense to their opponents 342 total yards of offense. Penalties, they're averaging 62 yards a game in penalties to their opponents 54. And their time of possession, they're averaging 31 minutes and 12 seconds with the ball. Their opponents are averaging 28 minutes and 48 seconds. On third down, they're 43%. Their opponents are 37%. And on fourth down, they're 50%. And their opponents are 53%. So this is, I mean, look, these are impressive stats. Let's just call it what it is. They could score. They're not really, they haven't really been giving up too many points as of late to their opponents. I think we'll talk about matchups in a second, but you know, looking at that, that's a little intimidating. I'm really curious to see how we match up against them. I do think we have some advantages matching up against them. I just think we have to do or focus on the fundamental aspect of it for it to be effective. I mean, you look at their running backs, and I'll go into the individual stats real quick. Starting with their quarterback, of course, Jordan McLeod, transfer from JMU, had a really good career at JMU, now with the Bobcats. He's completing 68.5% of his passes. He's thrown for 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he's right under 1,900 yards with 270 yards of passing offense per game. And of course, this guy's the factor here, Ismail Mahdi. He had a really good game against us last year. He's pretty much the best. I think he's the best running back in the Sun Belt. He's got 122 carries for 646 yards. He only has 2 touchdowns, but he could definitely tear you up. And based on the way we didn't tackle last week, you're going to have to wrap and tackle this guy if you want a chance to win this game. You got to stop him. And on top of that, you've got Jordan McLeod, who complements him with 217 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. So they spread it out. G.J. Kinney's done a good job spreading. They like to spread the field. They like to go to their receivers, but they also like to open up the run. They're very, very much, they kind of come off as as a what's the word? I'm losing my train of thought, guys. The air raid. They kind of run an air raid with a little mix of a rushing attack. Sort of similar to what Colorado does with Coach Prime. They like to spread them out 4 or 5 wide, and then it opens up the run game in the middle. That's kind of what Texas State does. So hopefully Coach Salgado and his staff have some, plans to be able to stop that, because in my opinion, that's going to consider a lot of open field tackling. So I hope our guys got their practice in, because from what I saw last week, that's kind of concerning to me. That's very concerning to me. We're going to have to tackle this game if we want to stay in this game and keep it close.
Yeah. But what you also have to keep in mind is that you look at, I mean, they're going to watch ODU's tape and see kind of what they did to stop them. But it was fundamental football.
Yeah.
It was fundamental football. And really, we're going to go to keys of the game, play fundamental football. And you do that, you're going to be in good shape. And I think you've also, I mean, when you compare the stats of UL and Texas State, very similar as far as, I got through the offensive part of it and looked at penalties and all that. It's very similar. Where we do have the slight advantages in time of possession, I think that's going to be very key for this game. I think we have to control the time of possession to keep their offense off the field as long as we can, to give our defense a chance to rest, because I don't know that we want to get into a shootout with these guys, because that's going to be a tough game to win. But I think if we control the time of possession like we have been known to do, then I think things will be more in our favor for that, along with the fundamental stuff. But I agree with you, but I think there's enough tape on Texas State that we can look, especially again last week on ODU. It's nothing magical they did. They just played a solid fundamental game and were able to get the win. So my hope is that you're not going to clean that up. I said it last week. You're not going to clean it up in 1 week. You're not going to clean that silly stuff up in 2 weeks, but you build every week to try to, again, clean it up little by little. I hope we are able to clean it up enough this week to be able to pull off the dub, because that will be absolutely crucial. And again, don't turn the ball over, because you start doing that silly stuff and then things can really get out of hand.
No question. Kev, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, 2 things on that. One stat, I'm not sure, I don't think you mentioned, but turnover margin. The Cajuns are +4 this year, and the Bobcats are -3. So that's another big thing that kind of goes back to just the continuity of this team and playing fundamental football, which has been our MO all year. Yeah, but no, I think it matches up well. We match up well with Texas State. Statistically, like Nick said, we're extremely close offensively. They're averaging 13 more yards per game offensively, not 11 more pass yards, 6 more rush yards, and we're scoring, both averaging 34 points per game. So offensively, these two teams are pretty similar statistically, but obviously that's just on paper. But when it comes down to on the field, I think it's kind of we're similar to ODU. As to go off of what you said about ODU just playing a sound game, I think we have a similar team to them. Their quarterback's been playing really good the last few games, and I think they kind of continue that against Texas State, and they just did what they had to do. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't do anything stupid. They just played their game. But where our advantage comes in over Texas State is on the defensive side of the ball. Even though the rush defense is been kind of shabby at times, which can be fixed, and there are a couple of different ways you can fix that. One of them is a numbers game, which obviously you can always contribute more numbers to stopping the run. But I think that wouldn't be a bad idea with as good as our pass defense has been this year. They've been able to hold their own on the back end without having to, sacrifice anybody. The other way is to tackle better. I mean, hey, if you want to keep doing what you're doing and just keep grinding, that's fine, but you got to start making these one-on-one tackles. And Gerry, you said it the last couple of weeks when we played App and Coastal, they had one guy killing us. You know, it wasn't a thing they were doing schematically. It was just one guy making plays, and we just couldn't tackle him. We couldn't bring him down. We couldn't. You know, there are times where we were the wide receiver for App. We were there, just couldn't come up with a play until towards the end of the game when we finally started coming up with those plays. So yeah, defensively, I think there's some things we can do to stop them. I mean, they're like 14 points against ODU's defense. Come on, this isn't a juggernaut offense. We can definitely do some things to stop them. And I think offensively, like I said, we match up well with them. We're gonna do our thing. We're gonna run the ball. We're gonna throw the ball when we have to. We're gonna stay out of third and long. We're 15th in the country on third down conversions in offense at 48%. That's kind of our bread and butter. You stay out of third and 15, third and 8, third and 20, whatever it may be. You stay within 7 yards of a first down on third, and you got a pretty good chance.
I do agree with you, Kev, that our offense is a lot different than what they run. Now, we run out the shotgun, but we run more of a balanced attack. I think in the last couple weeks, we've been able to move the ball downfield both on the ground and in the air, and we're not trying to run a 5 wide or run crazy screens. It's more of a contemporary, I'm not going to say slow-paced offense. Our offense it's high-paced, but it's a lot more level-headed, if that makes sense. Like, it's not going to be line up in the 5 wide, throw for the vertical route, and then set up a run, and then go back to that. I like the fact, like we've always talked about, we're throwing to the tight end some more. We're rotating our running backs. We're hitting curl routes to our receiving core. We're hitting out routes in the flat to whether it's to any of them, any running back, tight end, or receiver. And I think what that's going to help us with in this game, and I think it's very important, is time of possession. I think if you go on the road and you're able to hold on to the football, like we're able to, and that's the word I was looking for, gradual. We have a gradual offense that can move. If we could do that, I think that could throw their offense off and keep them off the field. And if you could do that at their stadium and put the crowd out of it, that's really, really important. I think we did that. We almost did that against Wake Forest. The difference was we were scoring pretty quickly on some of those touchdown drives, but I thought we held our own. Nick, you brought it up against Coastal Carolina. We had the ball, 38 minutes or something like that? Something ridiculous. So I do think that's important in this particular game because of the type of offense that we're facing. And, all of these things I'm mentioning, I'm not saying I'm intimidated because what Texas State's able to accomplish here or what they've accomplished offensively. I'm a little more nervous because it's at their stadium and there's a lot of hype into it and there's a lot of excitement on their end, and we have to learn how to counter that. And it's funny. I actually asked that to Coach Dez. I went to the quarterback club luncheon, and without giving away too much, I asked him that. I said, "How is our team? I know we're going to be motivated to play. I'm not taking that away from our team." But we are going to an environment where they pretty much have our game circled on their calendar when the schedule came out. It's a Tuesday night game. It's on national television. They've never beaten us. And this is, look, we're atop the we're atop the Sun Belt West, but we're atop the Sun Belt as a whole right now. Okay. If you combine both divisions, they're going to want to go out. They're coming after us. So how do we counter that? And he gave me an answer, and I'll sum it up like this: discipline. When you kick the ball off, it doesn't matter what the crowd does. It doesn't matter the hype and all of that. You just have to play disciplined football. And so I'm hoping that's what we do. If we play disciplined football, we're going to win. I have no doubt about that. But there have been some times in the last couple of weeks, even in spite of winning, where I've seen some slip-ups, and I'm just like, man, it can't come out at the wrong time against the wrong opponent, because that's where I think it can eventually come back to catch up.
Well, I think too, the offensive line has to protect Ben. I think that's going to be a big key to winning this week. Is look, we have. I don't know how defensive coaches game plan against us, because when you have the tight ends that we throw to, we've got a wide receiver core that we've got 3 running backs that all can have breakaway speed, and then you've got Ben, who's shown, while he's not primarily a running quarterback, he can still move the ball down the field with his legs and get a first down if he needs to, and is not scared to lower his shoulder and pick up some yardage. So I think we're really, really difficult to plan for offensively or defensively for the other team. However, the way that and we've seen other teams really take advantage of things and kind of even things out a little bit is bringing pressure successfully against Ben. So our offensive line has to be prepared for that. And that even goes down to the running back core, in pass protection, when they've got to throw a block, they can't do what they did against Tulane and block on the wrong side of the line, and let a guy come free from the safety spot. So I think as long as our offensive line and the running backs pass protect, I think, and then of course our offensive line opens up holes, I think we'll be fine. But again, we have to protect Ben because we've seen him be vulnerable under pressure. And those are the times that had me a little bit concerned. Outside of that, I agree with what both of you have said. I don't think it's rocket science. We've probably said the same 3 keys to the game for every game this season. And it's going to be no different against Texas State and against Coastal. We just kept, like, one common theme that I just kept saying is we're beating ourselves. Like, these guys should not be in the game. We're beating ourselves, and we cannot do that this week against Texas State.
So let's get into it. What are the 3 keys to victory? What is it going to take for us to beat Texas State on Tuesday night? Nick, you go first.
Yeah, I think I said it already, but one, offensive line, protect Ben, and again, adding on to that, the running backs have to throw the blocks that they need to block in pass protection. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think all 3 of us said it: solid fundamental football, clean up the ditty fingers, wrap up tacklers. And then 3, we want to control the time of possession. There's no way we should not be able to do that when you've got Zylan, Bill, and Dre as your 3 running backs. Hopefully Zylan is going to be 100% this week. After suffering that injury, I think he's going to be a full go. But even so, even if Zylan does not, play all the snaps that he typically does, when you have Dre, when you have Bill, you got 2 guys who can still control that time of possession for you on the ground. So to me, those are the 3 keys to victory this week.
Yeah, before I get into the keys of victory, I just want to go off of what you said. I think you're completely right about the hardest thing for defenses to do to plan for us is the fact that if you take away either aspect of our offense, which obviously is run or pass, we can lean on the other to get us back to where we need to be balanced. Early on, like the Tulane game, they sort of took away our ability to run a little bit. There were a few explosive plays, but we had to lean on Ben a little bit, and they had a great defensive front. That was the best defensive front we've seen all year by a mile. And Ben was still able to find some success, especially in the second half. So I think that is a great aspect of our offense that, we can lean on either one. We're pretty even as far as running and passing statistically to do what we need to do to win games. But yeah, keys to victory, to go off of that, it's the same number 1 key to victory every week in any football game at any level: win the turnover battle. Like I said earlier, we're +4 on turnovers this year. That's 30th in the country, and they're -3, and that's 97th in the country. So it's mostly come from fumbles. They have 5 fumbles this year. They've lost 5 fumbles. They've only thrown 3 interceptions. So, Marty, he may have a tendency to swing the ball a little bit, not keep it nice and tight, get a fist in there, which we do really good with punching balls. I notice we swing at balls when we can. Force some fumbles, win the turnover battle, give us some extra possessions, because most of the times our offense is going to come away with some sort of points. We don't punt a lot. Number 2, run the damn ball. It ain't, like you said, it ain't rocket science. Run the damn ball, control the clock, control the games. The same thing we did last week. I don't care if it's not. I don't want to sound like Jay here, Nick. I don't care if it's not 50-0, but a win's a win. Whether it's 10 points, 3 points, or 20 or 30 points, especially in this league and on the road in a hostile environment. We haven't lost a road game this year. Like I said last week, how many teams can say that? So win how you can. You got to run the ball. The third thing, and this is the one thing that we struggled with all year, and it's the one thing that y'all said would come back to bite us eventually, and I think we're so close to fixing it, and I think we can this week, is contain that one guy, in this case, Ishmael Mahdi. you wrap him up. You get an extra linebacker in there. You do what you can. You may have to sacrifice a little bit, but that's okay. I think we have the talent. We have a super talented secondary. I can't say enough about those four, mainstays, five guys in the backfield. Um, Contain him. Let the secondary do their thing. Don't give up the big play. I don't see why we can't take care of business as we have the last 3 weeks with multiple possession wins.
Yeah, I think for me, the number one key is to tackle. Like you guys mentioned, fundamental football, you got to have open field tackles. This is an offense that we're facing that loves to spread the field. You've got to be able to have tackle in the open field. And if you don't, it can be a long night. Now, if we do tackle in the open field, and if we do put some pressure on their quarterback, I think we're going to be in good shape. But you've got to tackle. I mean, the last couple of weeks, we have not tackled as well, and we've kept teams in the game when we could have put it away early. So, again, you're going to their house. This is not, and you're going into a hostile environment against a team that's very hungry right now. So we're going to have open field tackles. I also think, like you said, Nick, gradually move the ball down the field. It doesn't have to be a one-play drive. It doesn't have to be an explosive drive, but gradually move the ball down the field. If we have to convert a few third downs, but make sure at the end of those drives, whether they're field goals or touchdowns, you get on the scoreboard. And I think that can really, really help us because it can help their momentum. It can help their offense. And again, anytime you do something like that on the road, you impose your will. So keep doing what we're doing with the balanced attack. Use all three running backs. I know Zylan Perry is probable, and hopefully he'll be back ready to go. So utilize all three running backs. Spread the passing around to the 8 different targets we have. And this is a game where you have to do that. And move the ball downfield and gradually eat up some time of possession, eat up some clock, and throw their offense off because they can move the football too. And third and last but not least, and we haven't talked about this yet, but dominate the second half. Why? I actually, if you look at Texas State's losses, whether it's this year or last year, they don't play well in the second half. Last year, we came out and they played okay in the third quarter, but we came out in the fourth quarter swinging, and we were able to come back and win that game last year. Same goes for Sam Houston this season. They were outscored 19-7 in the second half against Sam Houston and blew a 22-point lead to lose the game by 1 point. So I've looked at some of their scores. Now, they're outscoring their opponents 80-68 in the second half, but if you take out the Arkansas State game where they outscored Arkansas State 24-0, oh, I'm sorry. I take that back. They're outscoring their opponents 92-80. They're outscoring their opponents 92-80. But if you take out the 24-0 second half score against Arkansas State, they're getting outscored 80-68. So outside of 1 or 2 games, Texas State's really not much of a second half team based on looking at some of these scores. And we are a second half team. And I think that's very important. That's a very important factor to look at, is that if we could come out swinging in the second half like we have in just about every game this year, including the Tulane loss, that can give us an advantage. So dominate the second half. I do think we can. But one thing about that, you got to keep it close in the first half. If we go in the locker room trailing by a touchdown on Tuesday at worst, I'm feeling really, really good. They like to load their scoring early on. They are a first half. Texas State's a first half team. I saw it against Sam Houston. I saw it against Lamar. I saw it against Arizona State. So that's why last week I think they didn't score in the first half against ODU. It was 14-0 at halftime. I knew the game was over at halftime. I said they're not coming back. And sure enough, they didn't. So dominate the second half. That's my third key to victory. All right. So again, Cajuns will go to San Marcos to take on Texas State. Kickoff will be at 6:30. Game on ESPN2. We'll talk a little bit more details about that. But let's move on real quick, guys. So the polls came out today. And the last time Louisiana was ranked was in 2021. They finished 16th in the country, I believe, in both the AP and the coaches poll. But today, Cajuns getting some love in the AP and coaches polls. Granted, they're not in the top 25, but this is the first time they've received some type of accolade. They're getting votes. This morning in the coaches poll, Louisiana received 14 votes. That puts them at a ranking of number 28 in the country. And in the AP poll, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was either 2 or 3 votes, which puts them at number 33. So Cajuns are ranked number 28 in the coaches poll, 33 in the AP poll respectively. I do think that if they win this week, I can't promise that they'll be in the top 25, but I will say if they win this week and then come back in homecoming against Arkansas State and win that game, Louisiana would be sitting at with an 8-1 record. I would expect them to be ranked. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but anytime you're mentioned in any of those polls, look, that's like we talk about with marketing to your university. That's easy marketing. So so far so good, but now we have to play like we're ranked. This is where the target gets on our back, and we have to play up at a higher level now, because now that those expectations are really starting to kick in. But I was very happy to see that, guys. I was really happy to see we're getting that type of recognition. It's always great when you're getting votes or getting ranked in the top 25. I mean, that's the ultimate respect in the college football world.
Yeah, I love it and I hate it because I hate the distraction. But we've handled it well in the past, so I think I think that would have these guys understanding, hey, that's great and everything, but that can all go away this week if you drop this game. So happy. Look, I'm happy that we're getting the recognition that I think the guys deserve. Very exciting. Look, the bottom line is we might have, which is crazy at this point, a better path to the playoff than a certain school right down the street. I mean, Tulane and us literally may have a better path to the playoff depending on what happens the rest of the season. Some of that outside of our control. So if some of those fans from the other school want to hop on the bandwagon, I know we like to give them a lot of crap, but hey, we will. It's like dual citizenship. We'll go ahead and accept it. Hop on with us. We will accept you. And I'm just gonna leave it at that.
See that we're extending the olive branch.
Yeah,
we're extending the olive branch. Look, we need fans, right? We love to get the support. We're not gonna, I'm not gonna pin it's either one or the other at this time, because hey, look, I mean, I know they're down after last night. I mean, you want to talk about a tale of two halves. And so they even had a TSAT burner that said, "I am wearing my red on Tuesday." So, just like the GIF we posted, hey, come sit next to Papa. Come sit next to Papa on Tuesday. Come sit by us. We'd love to have you. So, it's interesting though, Nick. And it's funny you bring that up because, to even get mentioned, our ultimate goal now with the CFP is to get into the CFP. And obviously we're not the main target here. I think Boise State is the G5 seat right now. But the fact that we're even on the waiting list, I mean, I'm not happy that we're not the seat right now, but you know what? It's a start. It's a start.
Yeah. And it takes, I mean, Boise is obviously in the driver's seat right now and it's theirs to lose, but you get that for better or worse with proving yourself over an extended period of time. And while the last couple of seasons we didn't really prove ourselves, we started kind of doing that, in 2020, 2021, had a couple of down years. Now we're kind of on the uptick again. So I think if we didn't have that success a couple of years ago, we probably aren't even being mentioned at this point. So that shows you that the branding, people give us crap. You're UALL, you're all this stuff, all that's crap. Like, you can see the branding is working. You can see that the years of our success are finally paying dividends years later. And I think that bodes well for us in the future. I'm not saying we're going to be in that CFP conversation every year, but when you think, you always have to appreciate where we've come from and now where we are. I just say enjoy the moment, man. And I said that in 2021, we're ranked 6th. Enjoy the moment, because this is special. This is not something that happens every year. A lot of teams and programs are used to it and they get spoiled by it. And you look at a Florida that fired their coach with a winning record because he wasn't good enough, and look where they are now. Or you look at an A&M who fired Jimbo, you had Ogeron and fired him. It's all like, they don't appreciate the moment that they're in because they're so used to being in the spotlight. When you're a smaller school like us that's not always in the spotlight and you get the recognition, to me, it feels a little more special for us. So enjoy the moment. That's all I'm going to say. Enjoy 6-1 right now. If we win, enjoy 7-1. If we win again, enjoy 8-1. But I think the season is turning out to be special. Enjoy the moment. Don't take it for granted.
And that doesn't mean to be complacent. I just want to let everybody know that Nick's not saying, we'll just be happy we're 6-1.
They know me, dog. I mean, I think they understand that.
No, but you see, we have, look, sometimes we have that mindset as a fan.
Well, in other sports, other sport,
right? And so look, at where we are today, right now, where we are in football season, we're one of the best G5 schools. Heck, based on the polls, we're one of the better schools in the country right now. I mean, the coaches poll has us ranked in the top 30. I'll take that all day, and that's mad respect. And so I think there's a lot of teams right now in our conference who would love to be where we are. And there's a lot of teams in the G5 that would love to be where we are. And so I'm enjoying the ride, but also I think we want to build on it as well. We want to be the team, kind of like in baseball and softball, where when they see our name on the schedule, it's a, oh crap, emotion or oh crap reaction. We've got Louisiana coming. Oh no. If we can build that perception, because it's not just the perception on the schedule, guys, that attracts recruiting. Players want to be part of that. People want to be part of that. So no, look, I'm with you, Nick. I'm going to enjoy it right now. I still want to win out for the year. At the same time, it doesn't take away what we've achieved so far this season. And that's something that the fans, we can all be proud of.
Yeah, and Lafitte brought this up. He said, love to see a number 2 to number 9 in a group of 5, 18 playoff. I don't. I have no desire to have a separate playoff for the group of 5. Now, what I would like to see is a way for the bowl tie-ins to work that way and say, okay, let's go after we got our group of 5 guys in our guy in the playoff. Let's pair up number 2 versus number 3 in a bowl, like a really good bowl. And let's pair up another, 4 or 5, go down the line and pair them up in good bowls. I know that's not practical right now because of the way the bowl system's set up, but I would prefer that. I mean, I'd love to go to a Liberty Bowl, or I'd love to go to the bigger bowls with bigger payouts, Texas Bowl, bigger bowls with bigger payouts on prime time. I'd prefer that for us, because I think that is recognition for the good job that your program has done. The bigger schools want us to break away and have our own playoff. So you give them that inch, and they're going to say, okay, we're breaking away for good now, which I still don't think they can threaten as much as they want. They need us more than we need them. So I think they have to keep us around. But I would like to see the bowl system changed, where there is less tie-ins for conferences and more tie-ins to where things like those types of things can be negotiated. Because watching Florida State play, I don't know, Stanford on a Tuesday night during bowl season is not moving the needle for me. But if I get to see Louisiana playing the number 2, I don't know, is it UNLV? To me, that would be like super exciting. Or Tulane playing, I don't know, whoever the number 3 or 4 team is. To me, that's more exciting because you have a story behind it. You have the guys who just missed out on the CFP. Let's see them play each other. I think that's the way to go. I'm not a fan of the playoff.
Well, it kind of goes back. That's actually a good way to implement the new system with the playoff system, because the perception right now in the playoff system is if you don't make the playoff, who gives a damn about the other bowl games?
Right.
I think that kind of adds a little bit of a storyline where, just like at old times when you had the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, even though you didn't make the national championship game, there were merits to those bowl games because they're big. They were big deals. And I think if you can do something like that, where you pair up your top 5, top 6 teams at a G5 level and turn it into a special bowl game, I think that could be something fun to play for.
Yeah, and then you get into things like, okay, the number 2 ACC can play the number 2 Big 10, or the number 2 Big 12 can play the number 2 SEC, or the number 3 or whatever. If those teams aren't in the playoff, let's pair them up. Let's make it make sense rather than just tie-ins to conferences that make no sense and have games between 2 teams that really don't have any relevance, and they're just playing in a bowl game to get their PS5 at the PS5 Bowl. Right. Let's make it make sense. And I think that's the path that if you want college football to make sense going forward. But then again, you have people in charge that things don't make sense because it's all about money. They don't really care.
No, they don't care. Kevin, you brought it up on your Twitter today about how we made it at number 28. I mean, we've talked about this. We've emphasized the importance of these kind of things when a team gets ranked high and all of that. I'm kind of curious to know for you, what are your expectations for something like this in a postseason? How the college football playoff works? Right now in the CFP, you've got the best G5 school that gets the one seat or the one bid. How would you like that to set up to create more interest, I guess, outside of just the college football playoff? Because again, today in the college football world, even the bigger bowls don't get the draw if they're not part of the CFP. So how do you fix that, especially at the G5 level, in your opinion?
Well, right now I think we're kind of at a threshold. I think the 12-team playoff I like, but here's the thing: the more playoff games and teams that you put into the playoff, the less these bowl games have meaning. And like you said, it used to be where in the old days in the BCS era, your bowl game was your end all, your end game. You win your bowl game against whoever it may be. For us, it was usually the New Orleans Bowl, which back then was very exciting. And you win that, and you have bragging rights against whatever other school may have won their bowl game, because chances were they weren't going to play. Whatever fan base you want to argue with, you're going to have each side because you each won your bowl game, and that's kind of was the cool thing about college football back then. But now, I think I think it is a good thing, the playoff. I think I prefer the playoff, um, because it gives it. So if you're gonna do the playoff, I think the best way to do it, honestly, you got to just cut ties with the whole bowl thing, and you got to go to a bigger playoff, okay? And you expand the playoff to where you have all of your conference champions plus maybe 6 or 8 at larges, um, to give more people a chance, and you give these group of 5 schools a chance to show their merit, as opposed to just having Boise State or whoever's the best. I mean, there's what, 50 or 60 group of 5 schools. I mean, and you're only getting one in the playoff, maybe two. Now the cool thing is with Boise is they're having such a good season. I think if they went out and maybe some more convincing wins, they could. Is it possible for them to get in that large, and that 12 spot opens up for Army, Tulane, UNLV, UL?
It's a long shot, but it's possible. It's a long shot though, because the selection committee, they're going to want the P4. They're going to go to the P4. They'll go after it. I think they'll go after a 2-loss P4 school over. I think Boise's undefeated right now. Correct? They've lost
one
yet.
game. They've lost one game. A very good-looking loss, a 3-point loss at number 1 Oregon. Right?
Okay. So they'll pick a 2 or 3 loss team in the P4 before they'll pick a 1-loss Boise State. That's the problem. Is you've got the selection committee that they're going to show some P4 bias. Now, it's possible if they choose it right, and you can get 2 teams. But in the direction it's going right now, and the way they're choosing teams, I just don't see it at the moment. But it can happen. It's a small percentage of a chance.
Yeah, well, that it goes to my point that the more playoff spots you open up, the more teams you can have in there, because really Boise State's not the only team that can make noise in the playoff. I mean, I think I'm looking at a list right now, 1 to 7, of the top 7 teams that could make the or have a chance for that 12 spot. Is it's Boise, Army, Tulane, Washington State, UNLV, Navy, and UL. So I think there's all of those teams have a chance to go in there and make some noise. I mean, we're living in a day and age where these group of 5 schools, even though they're trying to put us behind the 8 ball, money wise, there's so much talent in the game that, and there's so many innovations to the game that these smaller schools, or I shouldn't say smaller schools, but these group of 5 teams can compete with these Power 5 teams. I mean, you've been seeing it the last X amount of years. I mean, look what Cincinnati was able to do and give Alabama a run for their money in the college football playoff semifinal. I mean, there's more than just one group of 5 team every year that can go up there and punch at these big dogs. So I think I think the best chance that we have as group of 5 guys is to expand the playoff. And it kind of sucks because like you said, Gerry, it takes away from the importance of bowl games, which is the biggest part of our history as a sport, as college football. But the direction that the the money guys want to go with it up top is away from the group of five, and they want to separate, and they want to keep all the money for themselves, and that's how it works. But I think it's in our best interest to expand the playoff and give more good group of five teams a chance to go up there and knock off some of these Power Four schools and show them, hey, we belong. I mean, look at Georgia State beating Vanderbilt this year. I mean, who would have thought that? You look at Vanderbilt's schedule and they're like, wow, they should be a top 15 team, and then you say, oh well, they lost to Georgia State. So I think that happens every year. And I think it's a good thing for the sport, and we just have to find a way to get them to embrace that. And I think beating these Power Four teams is the best way to do it.
Well, I think they're too focused right now at the P4 level. They're too focused on the top 15 teams, and they base all of their results on the top 15 teams. The other 50 teams in the P4 are all beatable teams. You look down the line of the middle of the pack Big Ten schools, the middle of the pack SEC schools, the middle of the pack schools out of the Big 12, and there are a lot of teams. I'm looking at them from UL standpoint, going, okay, we can play them. I mean, we beat Wake Forest, who is now a 500 team in the ACC. You look at what what Georgia State did to Vanderbilt. You look at some of the wins that JMU has had in the past, or App State has had in the past, or Marshall has had. I mean, Marshall beat Notre Dame 2 years ago. So you look at all of that and you go, maybe there's a little more parity than we think between the G5 and the P5. But the problem is when you base it off of just the top 10 to 15 teams in the P4, like Texas and Alabama and Oregon, well, of course it's going to be lopsided. Of course it's going to be unfair.
Yeah, you keep pumping up these teams like they're the God's given gift to the world. I mean, Vandy lost to freaking Georgia State
and beat Alabama.
Yeah, and I think Vandy might be ranked now. So that goes to show you, like, it's, and how many teams there's the running joke I think I saw on social media, or maybe it was ESPN, where they said SEC had a good week because they didn't play any Sunbelt teams. It's true. Like, that's what we do, is that we show the country that we can play football with anybody in the country. And it's disappointing because they just pump up these teams like they're just completely unbeatable and nobody else can touch them because they play each other every week. If you go outside of conference, it's not always that easy.
Who's number one in the SEC right now?
I don't know or care, to be honest with you. A&M?
Texas A&M. Who did Texas A&M lose to just a few years ago at home?
Oh yeah, App State, right? Wasn't it App State? Yeah. And it wasn't even close. Like, they got their butts kicked.
So there is parity. Notre Dame's a top 10 team right now. Their one loss is to Northern Illinois, and they lost to Marshall 2 years ago.
And lost to Marshall that didn't even compete anywhere in the. I mean, like Georgia State, look at what they're doing. Nothing.
We beat Marshall a few weeks later.
So I mean, no, I agree. But the narrative that the talking heads will continue to give you is that we are just so much more superior, that the D-bag from the SEC is saying, well, we're just so much better than everyone. We need to have conversations with the Big Ten so we can break off. But the fact of the matter is, it's like that's not necessarily reality. Do they win a lot against us? Yes. But do they win every time? Not against the Sun Belt.
Again, when you only base your argument around maybe 20% of your entire P4 list, when you talk about it with, well, we can't, or you can't compete with us, but you're only basing it around like 15 teams out of the 65 that exist, it becomes a moot point. And I think you realize that, okay, there's an obvious bias there. And so, look, we can't solve the problem overnight. And I know that they're trying to separate themselves more with NIL. But even in the world of NIL right now, it's showing us that that's not always the case. It doesn't always work that way. And I don't see it. Do I think it's going to get a little bit worse with NIL? Yes, a little bit. But I still think the parity is going to be there as long as the G5 still exists and has at least a seat at the table in the CFP. But we'll see. But anyway, we could talk about this all night, Kevin. But let's move on real quick. I'm going to go through the Sun Belt schedule. A lot of big games were played yesterday and over the weekend. And it actually it coalesces into the standings for Louisiana and where the Cajuns stand right now. So I'll start with Thursday night. Thursday night, Old Dominion took on Georgia Southern. Now, Georgia Southern had just beaten JMU last week in Statesboro in front of a packed house, and they were alone at the top of the Sun Belt Eastern Division. They go to ODU and get destroyed to ODU by the score of 47-19. Actually, the score was a lot worse for a little while. ODU in the last 2 weeks have played at such a high level. They were 2-4. Now they sit at 4-4, defeating Texas State and Georgia Southern back to back. So that was a big win for ODU. Now ODU, I believe, is atop of the Sun Belt Eastern Division with that win. Good win for the Monarchs again, victorious over Georgia Southern by the score of 47-19. App State, homecoming. Well, not necessarily homecoming, but it was a homecoming for App State coming back to Boone. It was their first home game since Hurricane Helene. Really, really great to see that. There were rumors of whether or not they could play their last 4 home games in their stadium. It was good to see that they were back. They took on Georgia State, and actually it was a really good game. It was very much back and forth, but App State, they were able to prevail and get back in the win column. They were victorious over Georgia State by the score of 33-26. And so, good win for the Mountaineers to get back on track. JMU hosted Southern Miss, another team looking to get back to their winning ways. The Dukes hosted the Golden Eagles. Golden Eagles' first game without Coach Will Hall. As you know, the breaking news last week, Southern Miss and Will Hall decided to separate their ties. Southern Miss making a change. Former UL assistant coach Reed Stringer, now the interim head coach for the Golden Eagles. I'm sure they'll decide on a new head coach come December once their season's over. But JMU took care of business against the Golden Eagles. Final score 32-15. Southern Miss now 1-7 on the year, which officially puts them out of bowl contention, and I believe that confirms another losing season for Southern Miss. South Alabama hosted a red-hot ULM Warhawk team. ULM 5-1 coming into Mobile, had a bye week. Actually led in the first half against South Alabama, but a tale of two halves it was, as the Jaguars came out in the second half and just dominated the Warhawks all up and down the field. South Alabama victorious over ULM by the score of 46-17, thus putting the Louisiana Raging Cajuns in sole possession of first place in the Sun Belt Western Division right now. So the Cajuns are in first place. And then last but not least, Arkansas State defeats Troy. Actually, that was a really good game, a very much a back and forth matchup, but Arkansas State able to get a last second interception in the end zone as Troy was marching down the field. Arkansas State Red Wolves victorious over Troy by the score of 34-31. You want to talk about a tale of two seasons. Troy, two-time defending Sun Belt Conference champion, now sits at 1-7. So that's another team that is officially out of bowl contention. Man, that is crazy. And the more I think about it, guys, the more I realize, as frustrating as it has been over the last 2 years, going 6-7, even though we've lost our last 2 games in bowl games, could you imagine being 1-7 after the 2021 season?
I mean, where are the Des haters? I'm just saying, where are the Des haters today now that we're 6-1? Can't find one, right? Man, wanted to fire him for 2 years, and we were claimed. I know people have been saying you're just defending Des and da 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 da. We had to give the guy a chance, right? You have to give the guy a chance, and he's proving himself. So where are the Des haters now? I agree with you.
Well, Des was never 1-7 after winning a conference championship.
Not even close.
So
no.
But Troy, they definitely have a full makeover.
And Des had a lot more to deal with than Troy did. Trust me when I tell you that.
For sure. So yeah, the Troy, that's kind of been the shocker of the year so far. Did not expect them to fall down, and they'll be back. But definitely they're not in good graces right now. I'm sure there's a lot of fans kind of conflicted. And I heard some of their fans going into the season, they knew they'd be rebuilding, but I don't think anybody expected this slow start for Troy. But glad it's not us. Anyway, so moving on to this week, just looking at some of these matchups. Georgia State on Friday will travel to UConn for a non-conference matchup against the Huskies on the road. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Next Saturday, this is going to be an interesting matchup, I think. This is where I think the Sun Belt East race gets intense. Old Dominion will go to App State. Kickoff will be at 1:30 p.m. Game will be on ESPN+. Another tough matchup for the Warhawks as ULM will travel to Huntington to take on the Thundering Herd of Marshall. Kickoff will be at 2:30. Game will be on ESPN+. Coastal Carolina comes back from their bye. They'll try to get back to their winning ways as they take on the Troy Trojans in Troy, Alabama. Kickoff will be at 3 o'clock. Game will be on ESPN+. And rounding out next Saturday night, Georgia Southern will travel to South Alabama to take on the Jaguars. Kickoff will be at 6:30. Game will be on ESPNU. And last but not least, again, this Tuesday night, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns will go to San Marcos to take on Texas State. Kickoff at 6:30. Game on ESPN2. All right, let's move on to Raging Cajun soccer. Louisiana Raging Cajun soccer right now sits at, well, they were 6-4-8. Now they're 6-5-8. Today they had their senior day at the Home Bank Soccer and Track Complex. Unfortunately, Cajuns come up short against Georgia State by the score of 1-0. They also had a game in Hattiesburg on Thursday night, falling to the Golden Eagles by the score of 4-1. They will travel to Marshall on Thursday, Halloween night, to take on the Thundering Herd, and kickoff will be at 6 o'clock before the Sun Belt Championship or the Sun Belt Conference tournament down in Foley, Alabama, starting on Monday, November 4th. So hopefully the Cajuns can finish strong in Marshall before getting some momentum headed over to their conference tournament. Raging Cajun volleyball. Let's see. They had a matchup this week. The Cajuns took on. Oh, I'm sorry. Did they have a matchup? Yes, they did against South Alabama over the weekend. Right now, Coach Christy Gray and the ladies, their record now sits at 6-13 overall, 2-6 in conference play. They traveled to Mobile on Thursday and Friday. That wasn't not a good weekend, losing both sets, 3 sets to 0. Yeah, in both matches, not too good for our volleyball team. They'll try to get back to their winning ways as they return home on Friday, All Saints Day, as well as Saturday against Arkansas State. The game will start on Friday at 6 o'clock. Game will be at 1 o'clock. Both games will be on ESPN2. And remember, attendance is free. So if you're not doing anything, go check out the volleyball team at Earl K. Long. Also, wanted to talk a little bit about fall ball. Softball had a few scrimmages this weekend. They took on, let's see here. They took on Pearl River Community College, and they took on Northwest Florida State College. I think they won both, and Pensacola State College. I want to say they won all 3 games. They don't have the scores on here. I know they won one of the games yesterday, I think by the score of 1-0, if I'm not mistaken. On Wednesday, they'll take on Baton Rouge Community College at Yvette Girard Field at Lamson Park, and first pitch will be at 6 o'clock. Cash only admission, just a reminder, cash only admission will be accepted $5 in cash at the Vet. So guys, that's going to round up volleyball, soccer, as well as fall ball for the Raging Cajun softball team. Before we go, moment of truth. Let's hear your predictions for Tuesday night.
So, hold on, let me find it because I can't remember. So I think it'll be a lower scoring game than we're used to. I just think because of the significance of what is on the line and 2 teams that are going to try to figure each other out for a half. I do think the Cajuns win. I think they win by a final score of 24-17.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that as far as it being a low-scoring game. Look, I usually don't make score predictions because it was a bit of superstition of mine, but the only score prediction I did this year was Wake Forest, and I predicted us to win that game 30-27, and we won 41-38, so a 3-point victory, so I'll take that as a good omen, and I'll go ahead and make a prediction. I think the Cajuns will make some second half adjustments as usual. I think we'll be consistent throughout the game, and I think the defense will come up big at the end. I'm going to say the Cajuns are going to win 34-23.
So it's going to be one of those typical games we've had in the last 3 weeks. Very close, but still a double-digit win.
Yep.
I mean, you could make it 3 weeks in a row and just up that one, give Texas State that 1 point, and make it 34-24 for the third week in a row.
It's possible. I'm thinking field goals, but hey, maybe there's a missed extra point in there somewhere.
All right. Mixing it up just a little bit. I like it. Yeah, guys, look, I think it's going to be very similar to the last couple of weeks. I think we're going to come out strong, score on the first few drives. I think the game's going to slow down a little bit for us because I think Texas State's going to be able to. They're gonna score on us a little bit. I'm not too worried about that, but I think the big difference is going to be the second half. I think we're going to make second half adjustments, and I think the Cajuns come out victorious by the score of 31-24. And sorry about the noise in the background. Anyway, I've got the family. I've got the family over right now, so.
That's awesome. Gerry, I love watching you freak out on camera.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
you could have just like stopped and just been like, be there in a second, but you just freak out.
Yeah. Yeah, Dad just walks in like, it's nothing, but hey, it is what it is.
I mean, he wants to come on the show. Let the man speak.
We need to invite him. No, we need to invite him for sure. I got
agree.
nothing but love for look, Mom and Dad are playing Grandma and Grandpa right now for my daughter in the other room, so I'm very, very thankful for that. They were passing out candy last night for Halloween as well. So,
well, tell T-Boy I said hello.
For sure. So yeah, that's my prediction, 31-24. We'll post that all over X as well as Facebook. I'm sure we're going to get Lane's prediction as well as he's on his way to San Marcos. Guys, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No. Look, I'm a little bit nervous for this game. I haven't gotten nervous for a game this season outside of Tulane. So looking forward to hopefully a happy post game.
Amen to that. Kevin, thank you so much for visiting with us, man. And by the way, I want to give you a shout out, Kev. I want to wish you, for everybody who doesn't know, yesterday was Kevin's birthday. And also he and his wife Shelby are celebrating their wedding anniversary as well. So happy anniversary and a belated happy birthday to you, sir.
We appreciate that, Gerry.
Well, thanks for coming on with us, Kev. Don't be a stranger. Of course, Kevin Dore, friend of the pod, our fan spotlight for the week. Just to let everybody know, we'll be back on Tuesday night following a hopeful Cajuns win. We'll take all your calls, your comments. We'll analyze what we saw against the Bobcats. But if you like what we do, please give us a shout out, like, subscribe, comment, talk about how great we are. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I said Twitter twice. It's okay. You can listen to us on Apple iTunes as well as Spotify. Just a quick reminder, Louisiana Raging Cajuns, big showdown Tuesday night on national television on ESPN2. Cajuns take on the Texas State Bobcats to hopefully keep their standing in first place in the Sun Belt Western Division. Looking for win number 7. You can listen to the game also on Hot 107.9, 1420 a.m., as well as 103.3 The GOAT. Be sure to listen to Jay, Cody, and Dawson on the airwaves. That's going to do it for today. Whew! Big showdown on Tuesday night. Get ready. It's going to be a war. For Nick, for Kevin, I'm Gerry. In the words of the late, great Big Dave Thibodeau, bye! We out of here. We'll see you Tuesday night following Louisiana Showdown against Texas State. And as always, go Cajuns.